Hmm. Day. This is Toksa Hour. I am Maggie Ross, and I am live from Porcupine, South Dakota, along the Porcupine Creek where the porcupines roam. I apologize for being a little late. I could not find my computer charger, so yeah, the granddaughters had it charging. It has one of those C ends or whatever they're called. So they had it charging their phones with it. So nice. Uh, so it is April 27th. Pretty amazing that this is where we're at now, the end of April. I think I'm still kind of back in maybe around August. Yeah. The time sure has gone by fast. We've fallen back in time and we've sprung back forward. And all these crazy things going on around us. We had an election. Um, People came out and voted, and they voted Donald Trump in for a second term, and we've been on a wild ride since. A very wild ride. And I don't know how many people pay attention, but I'll tell you, it's frustrating for me. It's frustrating for me when I try to talk about these things to leadership people because for some reason we are in this duck and dive type of leadership. Like we don't stand up, we don't anything. Like everybody's afraid of whatever consequence. And I think, well, what are we doing then? There's like for over a year, if we make it to October 7th, 2025, we will be 2 years into what at first spent a year looking like a genocide. Now it's looking like it's a Holocaust. And people talk about that. Like, if you look at the definitions of one to another. And so I'm going to ask here, give me, so I'm asking chat to give me the definition. So it says genocide is the deliberate and systematic destruction in whole or in part of an ethnic, racial, religious, or national group. The key points it involves actions like killing members of the group, causing serious bodily or mental harm, inflicting conditions designed to destroy the group, preventing births, and forcibly transferring children. The term was coined by Polish Jewish lawyer Raphael Lemkin in 1944. It became legally defined in the United Nations Genocide Convention of 1948. Okay, so the Holocaust is defined as referring to the genocide of approximately 6 million Jews, along with millions of others, including Roma people, disabled individuals, Poles, Soviet prisoners of war, and others by Nazi Germany during World War II. The word Holocaust comes from the Greek holocauston, meaning a completely burnt sacrifice. It is now widely understood to specifically describe the mass extermination carried out by the Nazis between 1933 and 1945, while genocide is a broader term for any group's destruction. Holocaust refers to this particular historical event. See, it's so Thursday, I believe it was Thursday. I gotta go look at my calendar. I believe it was the 24th, or maybe it was the 25th. Um, okay, so I said I wanted a description without it being referred to Nazi Germany. And it says a Holocaust is a massive destruction or slaughter, especially by fire or overwhelming violence. In ancient times, it referred to sacrificial offering completely consumed by fire. Modern general use. It can describe any widespread destruction or mass killing by war, fire, violence, or catastrophe. Example, the nuclear holocaust refers to the total devastation that could happen from nuclear war and probably did happen in Japan, right? The end of World War II. Um, at its root, a Holocaust means complete destruction, usually by fire or through total slaughter, not just the specific horrific event of World War II, though that's how the word is most commonly used today. So, oops. So we've spent oops, I can't even spell. So um so I'm asking about the Holocaust Remembrance Day. It says usually falls in April, but the exact date changes each year because it's based on the Hebrew calendar, the 27th of Nisan. So it was April 23rd this year. So it was Wednesday, I believe. This past Wednesday. Yeah, it was Holocaust Remembrance Day. And so people are, there's a lot of conversation, a lot of chatter about this remembrance. And so, as I was saying, the Holocaust, or well, the genocide. So October 7th, every politician in the world stood up and said that Israel has a right to defend itself. And even tribal or native people were saying like, well, they have a right to defend themselves, but never really like acknowledging what was happening, the colonization, the open air prison that Gaza had become, the separation, the segregation, all of that stuff that was happening with West Palestine, or the West Bank, and then what was happening with Gaza. Like all of this stuff happening. And people are saying, well, Israel had a right to defend itself. And then you're like, from what? Defend themselves from what? What are they defending themselves from? Does the Palestinian have a right to defend themselves? Like they're us. And I've said this for now almost 2 years. They are just like us. We are in the same boat as them. We are dehumanized and we are less than even to this day. We live in a red state that wants to move back into segregation. They started passing laws back in 2016, 2017, 2018, saying put those Indians back on the reservation. The state does not have responsibility over those Indians. Those Indians belong to the federal government. They've been doing this. Counties have been passing those, and then the state passed it. But yet they fail when they say give the Indians back to the federal government. They fail to acknowledge that a good majority of their money comes because of us Indian people. So if you're going to give us back to the federal government, give our money back too. Give our money to the tribal governments directly. Don't be doing where you're taking administrative costs. Don't be taking those things. So when we talk about snaps, or we talk about the commodities that we get at the commod house, all of that money goes to the state, which then disperses out. It should come straight to the tribes because the state then takes their administrative costs. They have to pay all of their people for administering these funds. And then they get to set regulations upon us about how, when, and what we get. And now Trump is saying we're cutting that. We're going to cut SNAPs. We're going to cut Medicaid. We're going to cut all of these things. So we're going to go back to a time of like around 1980s, maybe, where there's like no service. And so we have to think about that. Like, what is it that we're doing and what are our leaders doing? So when we're in this duck and dive situation, like, oh, let's not say anything because if we say anything, it's going to get brought to us or they'll do something to us or whatever. Like we should be positioning ourselves in ways, everybody should be doing this, positioning themselves in ways that they can defend themselves. So do we have a right to defend ourselves from our government? Yes. Yes, yes, yes. We do. We have a treaty that we should be standing on. Um, we have so many things um that happens, but this administration has been like that's their whole goal, right? Their whole goal is to dismantle this effort. Because it's getting into absolutism. We're getting into tyranny. We're getting into monarchy. That's what's happening. And nobody right now, a few, I think, like nobody's who's standing up to this. So in the United States Constitution, it says um, in Articles 1, 2, and 3, we have, the Constitution says that the power is divided among three branches: the legislative, which makes the law, and the legislative is made up of your Senate and your House of Representatives. Your House of Representatives has the purse strings. So legislative makes the laws, executive enforces the laws, and judicial interprets the laws. And so everything is based on the Constitution, supposedly in this system. So if you make a rule that violates, if you make a law that's going to violate people's rights or violate the Constitution, you can take that law to court, and you can go to the court, and the judicial system will hear you all the way to the Supreme Court if you make a legitimate claim against the law. And the Supreme Court, which is supposed to be the last place that the standing is, they interpret the law and they say either the law violates the Constitution or it does not. Along the way, there's precedents where they say they kind of make law because they might overturn something that violates the Constitution, but the legislators may never do anything about it, just leave it alone. And then the executive, when they enforce the law, so they're taking all the laws that the legislature made and they're saying, okay, we are going to interpret these laws and then we're going to enforce them. So right now, we have Trump, who is just doing all of it. So they arrested a sitting judge in Wisconsin, a state sitting judge in Wisconsin, for interfering with Homeland Security. So this is what they're doing now. So when a judge is saying that a immigrant or a person, because that's how they're defined, it's defined in the Constitution, is a person or persons. So when we have so if you are being accused of being here illegally, then you go through a deportation process. But Trump doesn't want to do a deportation process. He just wants to round whoever up, put them on planes, and send them to El Salvador. Because he's paying that guy billions of dollars now to build more of these prisons to put people in. And so now they've arrested a sitting judge in Wisconsin over this. So where is our outrage? There is none. Like even the MAGA hats, they should be very alarmed about this because this can flip, right? It can flip at any election. That's if we have another one. Excuse me. So yeah, we're like in this place where it's very, very alarming, and we should be concerned because, and I've called, and I think Dune's office was the only office that was a little offended by me because I said, Trump could come after me and deport me without any due process. And so now we know that's where we're all going, is El Salvador. Any dissenting person can end up in El Salvador prisons. So that's where we're going to go, whether you're legal or illegal. So I said that, and they're like, well, give us a call. I said, what if they don't even give me a phone call to call you? And people think it's nonsense. It's really nonsense for me to be saying this. I mean, I said it to Dusty Johnson's office. I called Mike Brown's office. I said these things like, where's the outrage? Like, you guys are the legislature. You guys need to be making sure that these laws are in place to protect us. And the court system needs to protect us. But the executive is violating these. The executive is becoming the legislature through executive orders and becoming they are the enforcement, and they're becoming the judge. So now we should know if ICE can come after a sitting judge for interfering with an investigation because they said that someone is entitled to a deportation hearing. We have a problem. Houston, we have a problem. And so this is going on, and we just sit and we're quiet. Some of us probably root, some of us root for the United States to collapse. I might sometimes do that because we're in like a free market fall, like all of these things. He's stirring everything up. Like the United States is no longer considered the most powerful nation. We are on decline, and we've been in decline, but it's really serious, that we are in decline. And so when we, excuse me, so when we think about all of what is happening, um, we should be alarmed because they are going through a process I'm just going to say the Department of Education, whether you like them or not, was created by Congress, an act of Congress. And Trump is dismantling and doing away with it without Congress. He doesn't have the authority to do that. USAID. USAID was also created by Congress. And a lot of the farmers are suffering because of this. And people might laugh at the farmers and say that's good for them because they're all MAGA hats and they supported Trump. But it's not good for any of us that this is happening. Whether those guys voted for Trump or not, it still doesn't say make it justifiable by, oh, good for us. Because this is harmful. Because now you have farmers that are going to and are filing for bankruptcy. When they went through the deportation process, or coming in, ICE raids, all of that, taking people that were working the fields, people that were working the construction trades, people that were doing those things. And we want to lay judgment on them. Oh, they're stealing our jobs, but where are we in actually picking up a shovel, a rake, pruning, where are we at that? Putting on our hats and our gloves and sitting out in the field doing that. Where are we? So the only way to get us to do that is to dummy down this whole system. So now we got to go backwards. We got to dismantle Department of Ed. They're changing rules that say that some states have said that the right to work. So before it was illegal for teenagers to work night shifts. Well, now you can work night shifts, and I think you can work over 40 hours now. So they're unwinding a lot of these rules and put people to work. I don't know how that's going to work in the world. I mean, in the United States. The only way I can see it is you have to collapse the system, and you have to put people in a dire situation to accept the conditions and to continue on what they're doing. And we're already in dire situations. We are. Like we have to work 2 jobs to try to pay our debts, to try to live, to try to take care of yourself. So we're already living in those situations. And so that's why I think a lot of people will do the duck and dive, like if they're not, if it does, if they could just not get involved in it and just they'll keep their jobs, they'll keep their safety net, they'll keep that. And so but like we're not, all we're doing is making this transition into a monarchy, into a absolutism, into dictatorship. fascism, whatever word you want to use. That's what keeps us there. We keep moving in that. It's like that saying where they talk about um, if you put a toad in water and slowly warm it up, like it's not even going to know it's dying, that it's being cooked, right? Because it tries to just adjust its body level or temperature. So that's what we know is kind of happening now. So here we have this whole unfortunate thing happening, and we don't have leaders speaking up. And I was watching like some of the Democrats that do stand up or speak up. None of it is about all it is the divide. Like they're not there, you don't see them trying to bring us together to find the common place where we can exist. It's all about, oh, those Republicans are bad people, like spinning. I really believe we need a third party. Like to balance what's happening in America, we need a viable third party. And people shoot around the Green Party, but not many people um, get committed to join the Greens. There's the conversation about the Working People's Party. I don't know what that comes out to be. The Labor, I think they call it the Labor Party. And then then there's just like we do have like the Libertarian Party. There's the Constitutionalist Party, but all of these things, it's really hard to get that population growth because we are stuck in this ideology of there's only two. There's only these two, and the lesser of the evil is what we're going to vote for. So we never give chance. And people really dinged Jill Stein for coming out and taking this election from um, Kamala without Harris even really coming out with clear plans, clear, what she gonna do other than this is kind of like my feeling about it. If she won, we would still be going down this path of decline. We would still be in debt, and we would still be actively funding a genocide in Palestine, and we would still actively be funding and supporting genocides in Sudan and in Congolese or Congo. We would also be actively supporting the destruction of communities like in Haiti, in South America. We would still actively be involved. And one of the things we can be grateful for from Trump is the exposure of things, with him releasing the JFK stuff, JFK and RFK. Well, then we clearly know that our own government was actively involved in um, assassinating our president. They're actively involved in the manipulation of the people. Sorry, I have a little somebody knocking on the door. I always lock the door on her now because she likes to come in and out, come in and out, and then yeah, 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 yeah. Mhm. 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 So, anyways, we actively get involved in our own demise. So we are the frogs in the pot, and we refuse to speak up. We refuse to say anything. So this is just getting worse and worse and worse. And then we're just going to be whatever. I don't know exactly what whatever is at this moment because uh, the Pope passed away, and I watched the Pope in his prayer and blessings on Sunday morning, Easter Easter morning. I watched him, and I thought, that was really I really liked the Pope. I thought he was very, he worked really hard to try to bring peace and um, do things right for the people. And anyways, so they say the last person that visited him was JD Vance. And so there's a lot of internet chatter about Vance doing something to the Pope because the Pope every day prayed for the Palestinians. Every day he called. And I told you last week that there are Christian Palestinians. And there are Christian Palestinians inside of Gaza. And they have a church, they have churches, they have a hospital, all of that stuff there. And Israel takes no makes no preference. And so Islamic, Christian, and even if you're Jewish, if you're a Jewish Palestinian, they mistreat you. But Israel has bombed their church, the Christian church, and has bombed their hospital, unalived the Christian Palestinians just as well as they've unalived the Islamic Palestinians. They don't take no preference. You're just Palestinian. We don't like you. We want you gone. The Pope called, that was like one of his last calls. He calls Palestine. He calls the church in Palestine. They do their, talk about what they ate for their Easter meal. They laugh, and you can see that in that video. And I just think, geez, what is wrong? And so, people rightly want to say, blame JD Vance for that. The Pope had been sick for some time, but conspiracy is conspiracy, and people would say that about JFK too. That's all conspiracy theory, but well, no, it's true now. No, it's true. And so maybe it's true about the Pope too, because they're pushing for a more conservative Pope that will stand behind what they're doing, will look the other way, will play favoritism to what is happening to the Palestinian people. Anyway, so he passed away, and then they did his services, and Donald Trump went to his services, and the news reports that he met with what's his name? Lewinsky, Vlad, no, that's Lewinsky, isn't it? That's the Ukrainian guy. Anyways, met with him. And so Trump has been on, people make this accusation about him being a Russian what do you call it? A Russian operative um agent, like that. And so when we hear about all these different things, so you have Russia, you have China, and Israel. So you look at all of the people that are influencing our country. And so we are in this situation where like none of our leaders are true Americans, and they, like Republicans, they claim to be the true patriots, but they're not, because they are passing laws, they are supporting laws, they are supporting this Israel terrorist regime to say that if you criticize Israel, you're going to get deported and you're going to go to prison. They're even saying in like the states of Tennessee, you 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 speak out against Israel, you could, like do time in prison, life. And so there's all of these things that they are not patriots of the United States. They claim to be patriots of the United States, but if they were patriots of the United States, they would be patriots to the Constitution, but they're not. They go out and do and say all this stuff because they're just talking heads. They're talking heads to other governments. And so I guess on Truth Social, Donald Trump is saying that maybe Vladimir Putin is misleading him. And so now he's like gonna side over here. And so he's moving towards this peace talk with Ukraine, and so that's what he's saying. So now we have to watch and see what happens with Putin, what Putin's gonna do. But we do know that something happened in Iran. So Putin sends what do you call it? Like military aid? It's no, but it's more like military. I'm just gonna say he sends military to Iran because there was um a blast at port of Bandar Abbas. So Putin has sent military to Iran because of this blast. It says President Vladimir Putin has ordered several planes to be sent to Iran to help deal with the aftermath of a blast at Iran's port of Bandar Abbas, Russia's emergency ministry said on Sunday. The emergency ministry said a Bereave BE-200 amphibious aircraft specializing in firefighting, as well as an Ilyushin 276 military transport plane, would be sent to Iran to help out. Iranian state media have reported that a huge blast, probably caused by the explosion of chemical materials, killed at least 25 people and injured more than 700 on Saturday at Bandar Abbas, Iran's biggest port. So, Trump don't like Iran. And so I think because he doesn't like Iran, it also gives him the how do you say it? Kind of gives him the how do you say that? Jeez, boy, my brain is just like giving out. Justifies anyways. So he's gonna go over and be on this side, and the whole world is turning against the United States. The tariffs. The tariffs did not work out how he wanted them to work out. The tariffs have like China swooped in and swooped up all, like they just blew us off. They don't need our meat, they don't need our soybeans, they don't need anything from us. So they just went to Canada, they went to Australia, they went to Europe, they went to other places and entered Mexico, South America, and entered into agreements with them. And so they don't need us. In China and India, so people are predicting now, like, because China and India are like the largest countries, they have the most population. And so China is already becoming a world dominated power, and we live in denial when we think that we are crushing them because they are swooping up into other countries and doing things. They're helping Mexico with high-speed rail. They're helping Canada build pipelines, and they bought up all of their oil, their crude oil, whatever their natural gas, all of that whatever they get out of their lands. I can't remember their tar sand oil. What is that called? It's not crude. Anyways, so they're taking that. Um, Russia. I saw this, and then I can't find the article. Um, but Russia was wanting Alaska back. But I can't remember where I saw that article. And then they said Canada wants to take um, Canada wants to annex Alaska. I asked Chat, and Chat said officially no, but there have been some statements in media chatter. Some Russian politicians, often ultra-nationalists, suggesting that the U.S. stole Alaska. Russian state media occasionally bringing up the sale of Alaska as an unfair or humiliating historical event. Then it says the important background in 1867, Russia sold Alaska to the United States for $7.2 million. At the time, Russia was financially strapped and worried about losing Alaska to Britain, Canada, without compensation if a war broke out. The sale was legal, voluntary, and formalized by treaty. Russia sometimes uses the idea rhetorically, especially when criticizing U.S. foreign policy, but there is no serious legal or military move to reclaim Alaska. Anyways, yeah, so there's people say things about it. And Alaska was saying things about it. I mean, not Alaska, Canada, wanting to annex them. My thing is going again, and I'm trying to gotta get to my settings. Maybe I need to sit still because I see I'm blurred again. Anyways, so there's a lot of things going on with the national politics and world politics that as Lakota people we should be concerned about, but we're not. One of the things that has happened recently is Harvard has sued the Trump administration because they're cutting their funding to them. Harvard there's like an old law or an old rule. I had it on my phone. I was reading about it earlier. I was looking for updates on it. And so this is Al Jazeera. Like I always go somewhere else for my news because our news is so biased or so biased. It says on Monday, Harvard University sued U.S. President Donald Trump's administration to halt the freezing of $2.3 billion in federal funding for the institution. The funding freeze came amid U.S. government efforts to crack down on student protesters and pressure universities into dropping diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. On March 10th, the U.S. Department of Education announced it had sent letters to 60 higher education institutions warning them of enforcement actions if they did not protect Jewish students on campus as stipulated in the Title VI of the Civil Rights Act. The letters also quoted Secretary of Education Linda McMahon saying U.S. colleges and universities benefit from enormous public investments funded by U.S. taxpayers. That support is a privilege and it is contingent on scrupulous adherence to federal anti-discrimination law. Shortly after, the Trump administration began freezing federal funds for some of the country's top institutions, threatening research that universities say is critical for medical and scientific advancement. So the biggest thing about this, and this is like big, like our tribal leaders, our tribal governments, our uh, um, native colleges or tribal colleges, they should all be getting behind this. And they should be writing letters to the court supporting Harvard, because Harvard goes down, like Harvard's making the big fight for everybody. Everybody should be behind Harvard because they're trying to protect free speech. Even even if Harvard is, doing things to protesters or whatever, this is still a free speech issue. And so we should all be behind Harvard to prevail in this suit, because when you go to tribal colleges, you have to look at who in tribal colleges, who do tribal colleges serve. I don't know of any tribal college that actively promotes or advertises diversity, equity, and inclusion, because we're already a minority-based institution. We use our cultural practices to guide us through the process of implementing what we're doing within our institutions. So when I was at OLC, it was that way. Like we talked about Wola Kokichiapi, and we talked about bringing our culture and our history and our community into discussion and things like that into our classrooms, so that our students are able to be critical thinkers. Well, the only questions most asked are gender questions, male or female. I don't know of us asking, I don't know of any institution that asks about pronouns or anything like that, because it's already a given. Like it doesn't matter. Like we don't have to create, in diversity, equity, and inclusion, a lot of what you're doing is you're creating a base for data analysis, trying to look at different ways within a community. So how many people are like this? How many people are like this? How many people are like this? And then you use your data to start to what they call drive your institutions. So when people say we are data driven, it means that we take data very serious, or they take data very seriously, and they collect it and they interpret it, and then they use it to build their policies and so forth. So having diversity, equity, and inclusion is already a Lakota value for us, for all the Lakota institutions, Dakota institutions. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, that's already what we are. We're inclusive people, where within our circle anyways, we are inclusive. We accept people for who they are and where they come from. We stand on ikje wichasha ikje wia, being common. So and then also we stand on the thought of midakoye oyase. We're all related. So you're my relative, even if genetically you're not my relative in the sense of that, but genetically also we're related, because we all come from the stars. Like our whole being, the planet, the earth is created from the stars, stardust, humans, animals, plant life, everything is created from stardust. So we are all related in that sense. And so here we have like I don't know of any tribal institutions that really get into this diversity, equity, and inclusion the way that like the government has moved because of assimilation. So the federal government had to create assimilation policies so that affirmative action, right? Affirmative action. So uh, people had to prove that they were bringing in minority people or advancing minority, like there had to be a percentage of minority people within your organization. Well, the Supreme Court ruled affirmative action was illegal. And so the answer to that on the Democratic side was creating diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so the Republicans are after that. They're after diversity, equity, and inclusion because they are white supremacists. And they may say, excuse you, but it's the truth. White supremacists move in that way to exclude people because they want to control the power. And so when we look at reservation life and we think about what reservation life is, when they put us on this, our ancestors on this reservation and any other reservation, the government controlled it. So the government hired their agent, the superintendent. They hired all of the people that worked within the government to disperse whatever it was, to manage our lands, to steal our lands. That's what the government did, and all those people were white people. So white supremacists are upset because like we have Indian preference on reservations, we have Indian preference, IHS, Indian preference, BIA, Indian preference, colleges, Indian preference. Our tribal colleges have Indian preference. So Indian preference then gives an Indian the opportunity to become employed and get into the system and to work and provide for their family because we live in a capitalistic world now. There's no moving as your family. There's no taking care of each other as your family. And so for hundreds of years, there's a person or someone became employed and then in turn turned around and used that money to try to feed and help all of their family behind them. And so people getting into the system through preference allowed also for Native people to empower themselves in the process of putting our voice into those laws. By putting ourselves into these educational systems. And this is like what kind of some of the things that they always will say about Sitting Bull. He said, let's put our minds together and see what we can create. And people will often push that into to support assimilation. Red Cloud, he Makfialuta, he advocated, and so did Spotted Tail. They advocated for their children to go to school and learn the white man's language and learn how to work in that environment so that we would not be swindled by the snake salesman and by all the BS that government was doing to us. And so they actively said, go get educated. That's why we have tribal colleges, education systems. Go learn it and then use it. Help save the people, work for the people. So we all have that ingrained in us that we're going to go off to college. We're going to get our degrees. We're going to come back. Even when tribal government doesn't want our help, we're here and we're trying to help the people. And so these are like historical facts that we exist with and trying to accommodate ourselves in looking at assimilation practices or what we're doing, how we're preserving our identity in this world. And so the white supremacist wants to come and take all of that. And everybody is just quiet. We don't have anybody coming out with any anything. As long as it doesn't affect us, we'll be okay. And that's not even how this works, because if Harvard goes down, we all go down. That's how the Supreme Court rules. That's how all of that happens. Like they make a decision, then it affects everybody. So we should be behind Harvard. We should be behind the stopping of this Holocaust that's occurring in Gaza. We should be actively out there calling, doing things, because this is affecting us. All of our money is going to Israel, to unalive babies, mothers. I watched, I don't know how many videos a couple weeks ago when they had blown up that school, that where the kids were in school, and they bombed it, and you just saw all of those bodies fly up in the air and come down, and then you saw fathers and mothers running with their babies with no heads, no limbs, running them, like still trying to save them. And I'm like, oh my God, like, and nobody says nothing. Everybody, we're so busy over here fighting because Trump has done the switcheroo. People should get into Malcolm X because he has a lot of like insight in his day about what is happening. And so he has us all doing this. What Netanyahu is doing to the Gazan people, our government is doing to all of us as American people. They're kicking people out of here. And then they're building up a, like, people are really trying to get out of America now. They're trying to get their passports. They're trying to do all these things. And if did you know that, like, if you have a criminal record, you're stuck in America? I don't know how Trump travels around, but probably because he has his, I don't know. He should not be, because he's a 34 felon and convicted felon. But anyway, so those are the things. Those are the things that we should be actively worried and concerned about, because this is happening. And I wanted to say this. I watch Candace Owens. I don't watch her all the time, but like I'll go and watch, things that she talks about occasionally. But she was sharing, and I'm so proud of Toksa Hour. I'm so proud that we did this already. Like, so there's many people that are just now coming on to learn about what the ADL is doing. Um, and then they use the International um Holocaust Holocaust Museum, they call it Holocaust. And so the International Holocaust Museum, what they do is they come out and they create the definitions of what is anti-Semitism. Um, And so we did this whole thing already. Like, you guys, Toksa Hour people, you guys are already informed. You guys already know. So I was really smiling watching that with Candace Owens, as she's reading through that, and she's being just shocked and stuff. And I'm like, hi, Candace. Say, she can't hear me, but hi, we've done this. We've done this. Toksa Hour is, oh, we've already covered that last year whenever they were passing all these laws. And so she was just now um, covering this about the states passing those laws. And so Toksa Hour, we did that last year in last January or February. I think we did it. I might see if I can find it and upload it onto our Toksa Hour YouTube page. Anyways, so yeah. So we're kind of ahead of the the norm with some of this stuff. And so many of us are because and I don't want to minimize people who are just now coming to terms and realizing what the heck is going on and all of that. You know, we want to welcome that. Um, but our focus when we're talking about all of this, it should be talking about Zionism and talking about white supremacy, because those are the two things that are disrupting the whole world. And Steve, it is important to say that land back. Palestinians deserve their land back. The Lakota deserve their land back. The Navajo deserve their land back. Everybody deserves their land back. And we also deserve peace. And so this whole thing is just a lot of crazy. So if you guys don't mind sharing out Toksa Hour, we'd appreciate it very much. To share, you can also share an email to people. I'm slowly trying to get with that, how to promote Toksa Hour on YouTube, because we're no longer on Facebook, and that's where our audience was, and we had thousands of viewers. And sometimes our programming would hit like 10,000 views, 23,000 views, you know, things like that. And so please share out. YouTube videos are shareable anywhere, so you can share them on X, you can share them on Meta, which I do not like. I don't like Meta. I don't like X either. Like, I think those guys are just both losers. But you can share it there. You can share it on Threads. You can share it on TikTok. I got to do some promotional things on TikTok. And then there's a new social media app that is rising, and it's called Blue Sky. And there is rumor that China may just take down TikTok. I don't know how they do that. I think it's through their ByteDance or whatever. It could just be a fear-mongering tool or whatever, but TikTok is becoming heavily suppressed. You can't even say words. Like I said, somebody said to this person on TikTok, go back to your own, or if you don't like it, leave. Go back to your own country or something like that. So I said, you leave, you go back to your own country. Anyways, I got a community violation for that because I said that. I guess that was so harsh and mean. I've also been violated for saying gross. That's gross. That violated community standards. And I also got violated for Diwali. Somebody was saying, I don't remember, it was just a bunch of BS they were saying. So I just put Diwali in their comment section, and I got a community violation for that. And like, somehow AI knows what Diwali means or what, probably not, but and it's not even anything mad. It's just like a whatever, or that's absurd or whatever, you know, it's like that. Like, but I got a community violation. So my love for TikTok is slowly dying out, but my platform is growing there, and so I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm on Blue Sky as well, and I'll tell you this other thing is, I'm in Substack, so I think I'm gonna start writing in Substack, and so I was thinking about all of that, and I also have a WordPress account, and in WordPress I'm the Prairie Rose 65. And that I haven't written in that since 2016, I think, when I started my dissertation. So I was back reading that stuff, and I'm like, man, I was going good on this, and then all of a sudden I stopped. But my last article that I wrote in WordPress was the election of Donald Trump. I'm like, huh, that's interesting. Wrote about Bernie Sanders, and anyways. tribal elections. And then I'll say my son told me that for some very peculiar reason, uh, with it at his school, some of his peers are telling him that, man, your mom needs to run. She needs to run for office. She needs to do something. And I thought that was so flattering. I did. I did run. That stuff is exhausting to do to just try to get change. So the best thing is to just try to build change with your voice and uplift those that need to be uplifted. And in the near future, if I can work this out, I am going to bring my Palestinian friends that are in North Gaza onto Toksa Hour. I think that would be fantastic because through TikTok, I have met some great people and I visit with them every day, almost every day on TikTok. So, to give them their voice, I want to bring them and let them advocate for themselves so you guys can hear. And then we'll see how that goes. But anyways, we are well over our Doksha hour. And I want to thank you guys for tuning in. I am trying to monitor my ums and uhs. Oh my God, I'm kind of killing it here. I need a see I need something. I need to go back to speech class. Get rid of them. Anyways, you guys have a good yeah. Thanks, Steve. You know, Steve, I do really want to thank you. You've been with Doksha Hour almost from the beginning, and I want to thank you. Thank you for sticking with us through all of it. I do really appreciate you. And there I am with the ums again, but I do know all of you that have been here since the beginning, and I do appreciate all of you. And we will see you next week. I'm still working on my guests paneling thing. It just people are really busy, so trying to work out times and stuff. People, this is spring, right? Everybody's getting ready for graduations and all of that stuff. So it does it's a little hard to get some scheduling done. So hopefully we'll get some people on. Other than that, I have a lot to talk about, a lot to share. So you guys have a good rest of your day. I appreciate you. I wish you well, and we will see you next week.